Welcome, welcome, welcome. Sorry about the first video. This is a minute and a half. We realized as we were going live that Twitter just cut us off from broadcasting. So at every turn. We just finished reviewing the Republican National Convention speech by Donald Trump after his failed assassination attempt, in addition to plans by Republicans for Project 2025, as covered in both, I believe it was the San Francisco Chronicle and the Los Angeles Times, the two large newspapers in California. Collectively, what it shows is that Donald Trump is still the same racist as we've always known him, using dog whistling politics, which is absolutely going to be anathema to the preservation of California values and destructive to everything we hold dear. In addition, we're starting to get insights into what's called Project 2025. Now, to be fair, Trump has said that he doesn't recognize Project 2025. Everyone around him and that worked for him does and helped write the document. And everyone he's hiring and will be staffing for him has written on the document and supports it. So he may say, I don't support it, but literally everybody around him, anybody he'd be hiring, anybody that'd be working for him do. That document specifically targets California and specifically lays out plans to attack California values. So Donald Trump will be returning. He'll probably be the elected president. He has shown that he's still racist. We'll walk through that again against California values. And the plan that will probably be his policy guide has directly slammed California, in addition to more reporting, talking about Republicans still today love hating on California as the epitome of everything wrong and being un-American. All reasons to look into the possibility of Cal exit. We'll get right to that. But first, okay, welcome. We're going to dive right in. Now, the premise of the show is the Republican National Convention speech with Trump after the failed assassination attempt. Trump proves he is still as racist, and Republicans, I can't talk today, are out to get California. So first, there's something you need to know called dog whistling politics. The other concept that we're going to be looking at is dog whistling racist politics, or racist dog whistling. So the idea of dog whistling is that you can use coded or suggestive language to garner support from a particular group without provoking opposition. So you're making messages, but nobody knows what those messages are because only dogs can hear those ultra high-pitched signals. So you can make messages that are racist and show that you support racism, but you frame them in a way that nobody picks up on that, except for the racists. So you have a group, you don't want to let everybody know that you're racist. You put coded language in your speech so that the racists understand that you're a racist, but nobody else can really prove that you're racist because you didn't say anything directly racist. You said coded language. Trump was famous for doing this. Many have suggested that perhaps after his assassination, he turned a page. Additionally, I've heard from many people that his RNC speech was unifying and a reach out to all of America. He specifically pointed out how he wanted to be president for all Americans, including minorities. I'm going to show you how that's total garbage and that he was lying. Let's get to it. RNC preview: Trump proves he's still a racist and Republicans are out to get California. First thing, Trump praises Jason Aldean in his speech right after he says he likes Asians, Latinos, and Blacks. So in the speech, Trump says, I like Asians, Latinos, and Blacks, Black people, African Americans. And then about 2 minutes later, he starts to talk about how he likes Jason Aldean. And Jason Aldean is great right after he says this. Now, this is an example of dog whistling racism. Jason Aldean and wife Brittany seated next to Trump at the Republican National Convention. He's the guy that wrote that song, Try That in a Small Town. There he is sitting and meeting Trump. And there he is sitting with Trump. So Trump called out Jason Aldean in his speech, said he's a good guy, and then sat with him and his wife in his personal press box during the rest of the speech. So he sat with him. Nobody else was allowed to. Those two sat right next to him. And he called them out in his speech right after he said he likes minorities. Now, why is that interesting? Because Jason Aldean is known for the song Try That in a Small Town. Try That in a Small Town has been getting a lot of criticism because the Maury County Courthouse building in Columbia, Tennessee, which serves as an American flag draped backdrop for Aldean and his band. The landmark was the site of a race riot in 1946, as well as the 1927 lynching in which a white mob pulled an 18-year-old black man, Henry Choate, from jail and dragged him through the city by car, according to several media reports. Choate had allegedly confessed to attacking a 16-year-old white girl, even though the girl cannot positively identify him. Now, some people are saying, hey, Jason, when you did this song, Try That in a Small Town, here's the courthouse. This is the first scene of the music video you're looking at right here, okay? Here's the last scene of the music video. So first scene, last scene. This is the courthouse where a black man was hanged to death. It's in the first 2 seconds of the video, and it's in the last 2 seconds of the video. Now, what did Jason Aldean say about this? The song had already been accused of featuring lyrics that were pro-gun and pro-violence, but the accompanying music video generated greater outrage for being filmed in front of a courthouse in Columbia, Tennessee, where a black man was lynched in 1920. Addressing the location of the video on CBS Mornings, Aldean said he wasn't aware of the building's history. And if he had been, he probably wouldn't have filmed there. But Aldean said, I'm not going to go back 100 years and check on the history of this building. Honestly, if you're from the South, you could probably go to any small town courthouse and be hard pressed to find one that hasn't had a racial issue over the years at some point. So Aldean says, I didn't know this was a racist signifying courthouse. The 1927 lynching of the black man was one of the last legal lynchings of black people in America. You got to consider this is after the Civil War is over. So we're talking about a holdout to lynching and killing black people. He didn't know that's what the building was about, and he didn't bother to check, and he just assumed he'd be fine. But he did feature it in the beginning of his video and in the back of his video. Now, what is the video about? Try That in a Small Town. You can watch the video yourself. Try That in a Small Town is about people from the city, minorities, using progressive issues, coming to a small town and trying that there. And then he talks about how his granddaddy got him a gun. And then he shows footage of people in a small town wrestling with minorities in gas stations. So Try That in a Small Town, all white people singing. All the good video scenes are all white people. Videos of minorities fighting white people. And then he's talking about, I got my granddad's gun and Try That in a Small Town. And it just accidentally happened to be filmed in front of a courthouse where the last black man in America was killed. Okay. And he just didn't know and didn't bother to check, and he didn't mean that. All right. Well, why did Jason Aldean wear blackface then? This video came out in 2022. 2016, he's wearing blackface, and people are so sensitive. So, wears blackface, does this video, says, I didn't know it was racist. It's about, and this is my favorite here. Jason Aldean claims that Try That in a Small Town video did not have racist undertones because people of color are doing stuff in it. The people of color, you can watch the video. Every scene of people of color is committing a crime or fighting the police or being violent. So black people in the video, people of color in the video doing stuff, and that makes it not racist. They're all doing bad things. Then you can watch the video. White people are doing good things. Anybody not white is doing bad things to the police, committing crimes, etc. So all minorities doing bad stuff, all white people doing good stuff. And then we talk about, I got my gun, come here and try that in a small town, filmed in front of a place where a guy was killed because he was black by a man who also committed blackface, and who said, I just didn't know that it was racist. And Trump saluted him personally in his speech, and he was the only people that were allowed to sit next to Trump. So that's what we mean by dog whistling racism. I like Asians, Latinos, and blacks. By the way, I'm going to talk about this guy who said, basically suggested beating up minorities coming into his town and that it was okay to kill black people. historically in the past and being ignorant of the whole thing while celebrating it. So there you go. Now, the other thing is that Donald Trump celebrated J.D. Vance, his vice president. There's J.D. Vance accepting the presidential speech at 2024 Republican National Convention, and at the RNC speech, Trump directly celebrated him. J.D. Vance, and I am shocked to find this out, most liberals don't know this, he did this. I've had to educate at least a couple liberals that this guy is racist and did this. So when he was running for office, he had trouble winning, couldn't get enough votes, so he came out with this ad. Are you a racist? Do you hate Mexicans? And then he begins to talk about how drugs come across the border and Mexicans got his grandma hooked on drugs. So do you hate Mexicans? By the way, let me tell you a story about how my grandma got, or my mom got hooked on drugs. It's because of all the drugs coming across the border from those Mexicans. And he starts off with do you hate Mexicans? I didn't say hate Mexicans. I was asking a question. Do you hate Mexicans? Then I never said it was bad to hate Mexicans. And then I gave an example of what bad things Mexicans do to hurt a white person like me. He won the race after this commercial. He was projected to lose before this commercial. After this commercial came out, he suddenly won. And now he's Donald Trump's pick as vice president and celebrated at the RNC convention. Coincidence? Okay. Oh, we're not done. Donald Trump said that he wants to outdo President Eisenhower on deportations right after saying he likes legal immigration. Eisenhower's plan was called Operation Wetback. It was the largest deportation because they deported U.S. citizens. So Donald Trump, in his speech, said, I want to outdo Dwight Eisenhower on deportations. He had the most deportations. And everybody thought that was great. Right before, right after that, he says, I love legal immigration. And this is what we're talking about, dog whistling racism. So I want to have the most deportations like Dwight Eisenhower and outdo him. By the way, I love legal immigration. Latin people. What he did not mention was Eisenhower's plan that Donald Trump alluded to and celebrated was called Operation Wetback. That is a racist term against Latin people. I know because I was raised as a boy being told that. Trabajando, trabajando, wetback working. Now, I'm Latin, I can say that. A federal policy shouldn't be called Operation Wetback or Operation, racist terms against different other people, but it was. Now, why was it the largest deportation? Because they literally just went through and deported anybody. Let's take a look at that. Operation Wetback, Immigration Law Enforcement Initiative, short-lived military-style tactics to remove Mexican immigrants, some of them American citizens, from the United States. So U.S. citizens were forced out of the country because they were Mexican. And I know this because my family and relatives told me they didn't even bother to look for immigration certificates or citizenship papers. They were not even allowed to look for citizenship papers. Literally, an army guy with a gun kicked down the door and said, time to get out, like they did in Iraq. I'm not joking. The way we did Iraq, we go into the door, time to leave. We did that to all the Latin people in California. By the way, this happened in California, a place Trump doesn't like. They called it wetback. They went in with guns. They ordered everybody out. They didn't care if you were a citizen. They didn't check for citizen paper. They just forced marched everybody out. And by the way, you're not going to hear this. They even forced Russians out because they didn't like those people either. And they said, screw it. If they're citizens, who cares? Let's just post them out to Mexico, which is why now you have a lot of Mexican people with Russian names. I went to college with a guy that was named Vladimir Lopez. So that's because the Russians were pushed out, and then they had who were American citizens, and they had to join. So they pushed out U.S. citizens, didn't care, and used military-style tactics with guns to push them out. Trump has celebrated this, modeled on inhumane 1950s program, experts say, 1954, wetback problem, military operation. Trump, largest deportation off former president, aims to surpass Eisenhower's 1954 campaign. So when we look at these things, what we can see at his RNC speech, which a lot of people said he was more presidential, and I have to agree he was. He was more presidential. But he said, I like minorities, and then talked about how Jason Aldean's video was cool. He said, I love legal immigration, then talked about how Operation Wetback was cool. He celebrated J.D. Vance and his wife, who is a minority, and didn't mention how J.D. Vance won the race because he said, do you hate Mexicans? Join up with me. So that's all there. That's all mentioned in the speech. It's not called out, but those are 3 instances of dog whistling racism. So he's still the same guy. Okay, that was the whole point. He's still the same guy, trying to show that to you. Okay, well, now let's get down to the meat and potatoes, as I like to call them. What exactly is Trump's plan for California? So it's a little bit curious. Project 2025 offers conservatives an attack plan for California. Will Trump take it? That's the question there. So we just covered dog whistling at the RNC. Now we're covering 2025 directly attacks California. This is from the Sacramento Bee, Andrew Scheller. Conservative plan 2025 radically reshape the federal government aimed specifically at California. Project 2025 document called Mandate for Leadership, the conservative promise name checks California. It specifically names California. It talks about they want to overdo a policy where children can get LGBTQ care without informing their parent. They want to undo that. They also want to undo the California Air Resources Board carve out for setting our own air regulation standards. So California was the first state in America to create car air regulation standards. Because of that, the federal government gave them a carve out saying they could set their own standards independently from the federal government. Trump fought with California over that. Now they want to remove that. So California's had that since 1965, or about 60 years. We've been able to set our own clean air standards, which has allowed us to be at the forefront of clean air and climate change. They want to remove that ability. That will damage our ability to set standards for ourselves. Abortion tourism. When Roe v. Wade was overturned, California said, well, we will never stop abortion, so you can come here and get one. They want to shut that down so they can punish California by cutting 10% of our federal support, and they can punish people who come to California for an abortion. So they want us to not provide abortions to everybody, and they want to punish us for giving American refugees access to abortions. Now, this is also from, I believe, the Los Angeles Times. Same thing, Project 2025. So we have 2 different California newspapers. We have this one from the Sacramento Bee, and then we have this one from the Los Angeles Times. They're conservative virtue signaling on such issues as abortion, climate change, guns, immigration, LGBTQ rights. Bruce Kane, political science professor at Stanford, says they want to attack everything in California from diversity, equity, and inclusion to connections to China, high-tech companies, to homelessness. Trump wants to cut federal funding to cities that will not use their police to go after undocumented immigrants, which is what we do here in California. He wants to then cut funding to those jurisdictions, which will hurt California. Now, here's the thing. We still have to pay federal taxes and be a donor state while he's cutting federal funding to us. So just because he's cutting federal funding to us doesn't mean we get to pay less federal taxes. We still pay into the system, and then we have funding cut. Another one is refining oil drilling in the state. California doesn't want oil drilling off our coast, famously after the Santa Barbara fiasco. They want to undo that. So there'd be coastal oil drilling. And we'd be punished for protecting undocumented people. Also, they want to attack the LGBTQ inclusive curricula in schools and the ability for transgender children to have LGBTQ rights without informing their parents. Again, sanctuary for abortion tourism. So anybody comes to California wanting to do an abortion, we need to punish them, and we need to punish California for doing that. And they want to shut down electric vehicles and California's own clean air standards, which is what the Sacramento Bee article said. Now, here's the thing. California bashing will get worse over the next months leading up to election day. Here's why. Experts said that if Biden is replaced by Harris or Governor Gavin Newsom, who are considered leading candidates amid a swirl of doubt about Biden's age and ability to defeat Trump. Conservative derision about California's liberal policies will increase and find a receptive audience in many parts of the country. A Time survey earlier this year found 50% of U.S. adults believe California is in decline, with 48 Republicans saying it's not really American. So California is already picked on by Republicans. Because Kamala Harris is going to be now the presidential candidate, and because she's from California, and because they already hate Newsom, you can expect the entire Republican Party to rally around bashing the hell out of California between now and Election Day. So the amount of hate projected at California here in the month of July 22 will increase all the way up to December. So because Harris is running, there's going to be even more hate created at California. I want to make sure that's real clear. Because Kamala Harris is now going to be the front runner, California bashing is going to grow between now and Election Day. It's going to get worse. There's going to be even more hate to us in California. Now, what you got to understand is that while hate against us is going to increase, it's already bad. Here's the Sacramento Bee, July 21. Republicans see bashing California as a powerful political weapon. Here's why. And they're projected to bash us even more now that Harris is the nominee. So here's some of the Republican Party. So much of the Republican Party identity has become cultural. California symbolizes the left for Republicans. California bashing is particularly valuable to Republicans now, because the state has two potential stars on the A-list, the potential Democratic presidents, Vice President Kamala Harris. So here's the SACB saying there's going to be more California bashing because Kamala Harris will be president, or the Democratic candidate. And then here is the Los Angeles Times saying literally the same thing. There's going to be more California bashing because Kamala Harris will be president. So two different newspapers saying increase California bashing because Kamala Harris will be president. But this is my favorite part. None of this California bashing is new. Reagan derisively talked about San Francisco Democrats. At the 1992 Republican Convention, Pat Buchanan talked about the California town of Hayfork, California, and that it was economically dead because of the habitat for the spotted owl. The 2020 GOP convention, Kimberly Guilfoyle claimed California was, the failure of America. So Ronald Reagan made fun of us in the 80s. In the 1990s, they made fun of us. In the 2020s, they made fun of us. We've actually covered this here. The 2020 Republican National Convention that was focused on how California is the epitome of everything not to be in America. So Republicans have been bashing us. They're continuing to bash us. And now major newspapers in California are getting it. And the bashing will get worse. That's what multiple people have said. Just to be fair, let's show you those sources. So here you go. That's basically what we said today. Here's where we got all of the information. Here's 2025 Conservatives attack plan on California. Same thing by Los Angeles Times. And then the California bashing by Sacramento Bee. So the reason that we did today's episode was that, this is still the same guy. So Trump is still a racist. He still uses dog whistling racism. And we showed you how the Project 2025 directly attacks California policies, and it directly mentions us. And we showed you how Republicans love to hate California. And we showed you how California bashing will get worse under the Republican Party over the next couple months. All of this leads to what we have said in CalExit. America chose this man. Democrats tried to say that Russia picked Trump in 2016. We now know that's a lie from the Durham report. Now here's Trump, the pick for 2020. Like we said in 2016, this is America's candidate. He can't be successful in 2016 have lost by 2 percentage points in 2020 and then come back to win in 2024 unless this guy represents America. We said in 2016 that Trump represents America. People are like, no, he was the minority. No, Hillary Clinton won the majority vote by the votes in California alone, which means outside of California, over half of America supported Trump. That was 2016. Then he won 48% in 2020. Biden won by only 2% at 52. And then now we're down to 2024, and he's presumed to win again. How can we say that Trump's not America's pick? By the way, he's still racist. Just proved that. And their plan singles out California more than any other place. They hate us. We're the example of everything wrong. What do you think's going to happen when this man gets elected? He's going to target us. Both because they don't like our policies and because they just don't like us, our culture. And because he doesn't like the fact that we fought so fiercely back against him. And as many friends have been pointing out to me, he's so much more polished and refined, and he has so much better advisors this time. He's going to be almost unstoppable. Imagine the 2016 presidency of Trump, where he actually won most of the time. And as we pointed out here, when we actually did a review of the policies that California used and fought Trump on, they only won half the time. So you're not going to see that in the California newspaper, but you'll see the governor and you'll see the attorney general talking about how we fought Trump in 2016 to 2020 and we did a great job. True. You lost 50% of the time, though. So half the time you can protect anything. We did a review of that here. We can't find anyone else in California newspapers covering that. So no one will cover how California wasn't actually able to protect California against all of Trump's ideas in 2016. They actually failed on 50% of those things. And now he's going to be more effective than ever. Might be time to think about this.